we got local stocks surging for the second day today. As we showed you a minute ago, investors digested the suspension of the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, over the weekend. According to Bloomberg Next Africa report 2 days ago, the Nigerian economy desperately needs a comprehensive policy reset, and the few actions taken since May 29 by the new President Bola Ahmed Tinubu seems to be rebooting Nigeria. Now let's dip into the markets as well as outlook on May inflation report, which is due tomorrow, Friday, from the Statistics Office. Now, my guest on this is Tajudeen Ibrahim. He's the Director in charge of Research and Strategy at Chapel Hill, Denham. Ibrahim is live to us from his office in downtown Lagos. A good evening to you, sir. Welcome to our Rice Exchange tonight.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
We appreciate you making the time tonight, sir. Tell me about the trading on Broad Street today as the central bank flows the naira at the R&E window. That's the biggest story on the streets right now. Talk to me.
Yes, of course. Of course, that's the biggest story in town, and it is a major development in the market. The market was much positive around the devaluation of the naira, even though we have not heard anything from the CBN in terms of communication. We have seen the market trading freely, which suggests that a devaluation has materialized. Just like you said earlier, the currency closed at 664 naira level today to the US dollars, and it was sending a positive signal to the foreign investors and also to local investors. And it is a strong indication that the days of arbitrage opportunities on the currency are over. I think that, largely speaking, underpinned the positive performance that we saw across the major indicators in the financial markets for today. Broadly speaking, it was positive.
What are you hearing on Market Street, Tajudeen, especially from both local and foreign investors on the suspension of the central bank governor and what they expect as a new direction or horizon, as it were, at the Central Bank of Nigeria? What are you hearing? What do we know at the moment?
So what we've been hearing from most foreign investors is that they see it as a positive development, and even some local players also see it as a positive development because they believe that it is an indication of a step in the right direction by the president, and it's also an indication that we are going to have another CBN governor very soon who is going to take over and make Nigeria travel in the right direction in terms of monetary policy and also in terms of the overall support for the economy, in terms of policy implementation. We all recognize that how the cashless policy that was introduced like last year was implemented. We all recognize that the implementation was not great and had a negative impact on Nigerians and the economy as a whole. So we are expecting that we will have a new CBN governor that will make Nigeria travel the right path in terms of economic growth, in terms of implementation of good policies, generally speaking. Particularly, in the area of foreign currency, we are most likely going to see stability, and that is one key thing that most foreign investors want to hear. That is one thing that can make them come back to the market. Those are some of the views on the table.
Well, Tajudeen, is exchange rate flotation or convergence the silver bullet for Nigeria's financial markets and economic problems?
It is not necessarily a silver bullet, but we have to bear in mind that it is one key element that will make foreign investors comfortable, that will also make foreign investors believe that Nigeria is running a transparent and effective foreign exchange market. So when we have convergence, and in addition to convergence of the rate in the market, we also have an improvement in liquidity. then we will be talking about, high credibility of our foreign exchange market. We'll be talking about effectiveness of our foreign exchange market, and ultimately we will be able to attract more foreign portfolio investors into the country, and even the foreign direct investors will also be comfortable to invest in Nigeria, bearing in mind that we will by then be running an effective exchange rate market, in my view.
Well, tell me, what's your outlook at Chapel Hill, Denham, in terms of the new monetary policy direction from whoever becomes the next substantive governor at the central bank?
I think whoever becomes the substantive governor of the central bank will face, some challenges that we have, particularly around inflation. We recognize that inflation is well over 22%, and our sense is that no matter how smart the new governor is going to just have to maintain a hawkish monetary policy stance on the back of high inflation environment. But over time, we are of the view that inflation will moderate, partly because of fiscal policy by the new administration, and also partly because of the monetary policy by whoever is now the governor. So at that point in time, we could be thinking about moderating our interest rate in the country. But for now, in the next 2 to 3 months, it doesn't look like we'll be able to go accommodative in terms of monetary policy, in my view.
So you think inflation for the month of May, when we get it tomorrow or Friday from the Statistics Office, will likely reflect the current macroeconomic environment, in particular what we've seen recently, in particular to the first subsidy removal, and perhaps will it reflect also the new exchange rate direct situation in the country?
Well, I think in that regard, we would not see most of that reflection in the inflation for the month of May. We have to bear in mind that the removal of fuel subsidy happened in the final week of the month of May. That is one. The second thing that we have to bear in mind is that this convergence or devaluation of the currency is also happening in the month of June. So in the month of May, our estimate at Chapel Hill Denham is that inflation will print around 22.5%. That is one. Second is that for the impact of removal of fuel subsidy and also naira devaluation, it will be reflected in the month of June when inflation is published in July. And to my mind, I am expecting something around 23% in terms of inflation.
So what do you think the local investors and investors should be on the lookout for? What should they focus on as the new administration puts in a new cabinet, a new central bank governor, and a new horizon for monetary policy as well as fiscal policy? We're looking at MPC decision again for next month. You think that the central bank will remain hawkish?
Well, I think they will remain, sort of hawkish, but, far less hawkish than they have been since the beginning of this year. And I think if we have inflation at around 22.5, 23% levels, chances are that there will be strong consideration for a little increase in the policy rate. And I will argue for not more than like 25%, which is also a signal that we are hawkish, but we are less aggressive as central bank. That is one thing. The second thing around fiscal policy,
you're talking about 25 basis points.
Most likely are going to see
Tajudeen, that's 25 basis points you meant to
most
say.
Most likely, yes, most likely 25 basis points. Bear in mind, this year we have seen 100 basis points, and we have also seen 50 basis points 2 times. My sense is that with inflation above 23, 25, 22, 23%, I think, not more than like 25% will be required, because we have to bear in mind that low base effect at some point will play out. But when we capture fuel subsidy, we capture naira devaluation, I think we still have to remain, tight in our monetary policy, but we should be less aggressive so that we do not, dampen economic growth too much. Damping economic growth was reflected in the first quarter of the year when our growth number was not more than 2.31%. That is not good for us. So if we see a less hawkish, monetary policy stance, that to some extent can be growth supportive. On the fiscal side, I'm expecting a lot. We have seen some announcements that point us to the right direction in terms of economic recovery. Good news was the one that we got around first subsidy removal. Also of good news is what we have seen around credit flows to the education sector. All those are positive, and I think Nigerians should expect more positive development and announcement from the current administration. If we put all that together, the positive impact, to my mind, will be largely reflected in 2024. We are already halfway into this year. I think we have this year to prepare the grounds for a stronger growth for 2024, in my view.
All right, thank you so much for your time tonight and insights into the current market week and beyond on the fiscal space. Thank you so much, Tajudeen Ibrahim, Director in charge of Research and Strategy at Chapel Hill, Denham, Lagos. Have a pleasant evening. We appreciate your time. Thank you.